save COD charges by sending check or money order, or use your credit card.
This is CNN.
Hello and welcome to our Monday show. Coming up, it may be the greatest murder mystery of all time. We'll take a look at a new theory and a new movie about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Also, tennis team superstar Jennifer Capriati will be joining us. Comedian Robin Williams has been ordered to stand trial on charges that he infected a former lover with herpes. Although he tried unsuccessfully to have the case dismissed, it stands, and the woman, Michelle Tish Carter, is suing Williams for more than $6 million. But celebrities aren't the only ones who need to worry about the legal consequences of keeping a sexually transmitted disease quiet. Attorney Margaret Davis says that 31 states have adopted criminal penalties for failing to tell a lover that you have an STD. She's the author of the book, Lovers, Doctors, and the Law. Good to have you back with us today to give us some important information about this topic. Now, what is your obligation to disclose if you have an STD?
You must make full disclosure to any sexual partner, and an individual who fails to do so may find himself confronted with a court battle for assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, even negligence.
Now, Margaret, what if you don't know? I mean, it's certainly possible that people will have contact and not find out till a while later. So you then go back and trace whatever number of partners you have and inform them, and how far back do you go?
It's really a question of reasonable care. We must act with reasonable prudence toward our sexual partners, and if that includes full diagnosis, full treatment, full disclosure to any sexual partner, that is what is involved. You must act with reasonable prudence towards any new sexual partner.
Having said that, Margaret, and knowing that most people feel more comfortable with things in writing, and do you start to put together a little form and say, here, sign on the dotted line, because this is something now you cannot disclaim. I told you, you know, and you can't come after me.
Well, certainly a communication between lovers in writing is always a good idea, especially in matters of importance. In a lawsuit, a letter in writing may be one factor in determining whether a partner made a good faith effort to make that full, informed statement to his lover. It won't be indicative necessarily of guilt or innocence in a civil action. However, it's always a good idea to put important things in writing. It could be
Wait a minute, I'm completely
involved.
confused. Margaret, if you put it in writing and you say, I told you, and the person says, yes, and I accept responsibility for having sex with you, how can that come back and haunt you to suggest that the person didn't know what they were doing?
Well, it's certainly one more factor in a lawsuit. It's like any other civil litigation. A jury is going to look at all the facts between the parties and all the communication. Certainly a defense of assumption of risk would be available in a situation where a defendant can prove that he made full disclosure and that the plaintiff understood the complete nature of the risk, and it was fully and completely disclosed to him or to her.
Now, are we talking about civil suits or criminal suits? Is the penalty going to jail, or is it paying money, or some kind of demand for health care, etc.?
In nearly half the states, failure to disclose that you have a sexually transmitted disease and transmission of that disease can result in criminal action. A misdemeanor would be time in jail, a short jail term, or a fine. In some states, it's a felony. For instance, in Oklahoma, you can get up to 5 years in the state penitentiary. And really, the idea is that it is a deterrent. An individual who realizes he may go to jail or face large dollar damages is far less likely to mislead a sexual partner. That's really the message.
When we talk about deterrence, I assume that the doctor-patient relationship is still confidential, yet here would be the perfect place to talk about deterrence. After all, if there was a way for the doctor to call partners or to insist upon an examination of this, it might be helpful. That's not the case, though, is it?
A physician is duty-bound to keep the information confidential. It's really up to that individual to tell his or her lover.
And how many people do you have to tell? Do you tell your employer? Do you tell your insurance company when you go and you get health insurance? Where does your obligation end?
You know, in the workplace, in the federal level, we have federal laws that protect discrimination against workers with a handicap, in many cases a sexually transmitted disease, certainly AIDS. In the private sector, many states have now passed legislation prohibiting discrimination. with a one-on-one situation between individuals, it's really up to the partners themselves to make reasonable efforts to disclose to their partners.
And what if the source of infection was an institution, a blood bank, for example, a sperm bank?
There have been many cases where individuals have recovered significant dollar damages from sperm banks and blood banks for the transmission of sexually transmitted diseases. Many of these cases are settled out of court before they reach a jury trial level.
And
there have been many.
Last but not least, Margaret, what about the issue of safe sex or safer sex? If you do not yourself take responsibility for that, does that let a lover off the hook?
Again, it's a question of reasonable care, and if there is a question of assumption of risk, was that risk fully communicated to the partner? Did that partner really understand? And the idea, again, is that few people realize that not only do we have a moral obligation, but a legal obligation as well.
Well, today one has to assume that there is an assumption of risk if two unknown individuals sleep together, and after all, your partner is your risk. So this is something that all of us may be facing. Let's talk about disclosing STDs. 212-643-0077.
To doctor a cough, you have to keep up with the latest medicine for your family. Like new Robitussin cough drops from the people whose cough medicine is recommended by more doctors and pharmacists.
Try this, it's new.
Robitussin cough drops have an active ingredient that speeds relief right to your cough to soothe and medicate.
Excuse me, try this, it's new.
New Robitussin cough drops. Cough drops from the cough experts.
Dave Thomas travels the world over looking for new foods for Wendy's.
But if it's... Excuse me, is this what I ordered? Tonight we feast, but first, we dance!
And it's not easy.
Boy, I sure could go for a Big Dave's Deluxe.
It's back. A big quarter-pound of fresh beef, cheese, 3 strips of bacon, sautéed onions. The works, only at Wendy's.
Which way to El Habib?
Come in for another Big Dave's Deluxe today.
You know your love keeps lifting me, keeps on lifting me higher, higher. I said your love keeps lifting me, keeps on lifting me higher, higher.
GE Spacemaker products, a higher level of entertainment for your kitchen.
With 5 powerful cleaning agents, Fantastic not only out-cleans all others on greasy kitchen dirt, it's the perfect do-it-yourself cleaning kit for almost every surface in your kitchen and bath. 5 Cleaner Fantastic. More power, more places.
Tonight, a married Catholic priest has the church up in arms. And Reba McEntire, all from the Big Apple, all tonight on Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Attorney Margaret Davis is back with us again today. We're talking about the legal consequences of not telling a lover that you have a sexually transmitted disease. Let's go to our phones and say hello to Jane from New York. Hi, Jane.
Hi, yes, please. I'm curious to know. I've contracted a sexually transmitted disease from a partner, and how would I go about proving that it was that specific partner in order to take action?
Good question.
Well, certainly, it's like any jury trial. You'll have witnesses and medical testimony. The medical testimony and the medical records are critical in a case of this nature.
Now, having said that, let me ask you, you then put your entire sexual life on the line, do you not, Margaret? After all, not unlike what goes on in courtrooms around the country. A woman or a man comes in and someone's going to certainly attempt to prove that you had many partners, that you lived a promiscuous lifestyle. You must be prepared for all of that.
Absolutely. No doubt that a case of this nature is really a grave invasion of privacy because your sexual history, your former partners do become a part of the case that you're presenting. And certainly a plaintiff really has to keep this in mind before they pursue litigation. Do keep in mind, though, that many of these cases are settled out of court before they reach a jury trial. And the idea, again, is that an individual who knows he can face dollar damages or time in court is really less likely to mislead his sexual partner.
Let's go to Dimitri in California. Hi, Dimitri.
Yes, hi there.
Yes.
Am I on?
You are. Go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering if these principles extend to other diseases as well. Anything that's communicable.
Like what?
Say a flu. It seems that, sexually transmitted diseases are not the only diseases that are transmitted this way.
Well, if we all start to sue one another about colds, Margaret, we'd be in trouble.
That's true. I'm just wondering if you can
Margaret, go ahead.
Principles.
There are cases on the books involving tuberculosis, hepatitis, and all the general sexually transmitted diseases, genital herpes, chlamydia, condyloma acuminata, things of that nature. So far, we are not engaging in litigation with regard to influenza or colds or anything of that nature.
Because I take a look at how one can protect oneself, recognizing, Margaret, that you cannot not always have faith that someone's going to tell you, what if the individual, in this case, the innocent partner, let's call him that, were to make up a form that says that we have agreed, consented to sleep together, and I'm asking you to sign a document that says that, to your knowledge, you have no sexually transmittable diseases as of this date, and whatever the window may be for the effect to demonstrate itself in the immediate future. What would you think of that?
Well, certainly that would be a good faith effort to inform a partner that you're making every effort to make full and complete disclosure and that you're taking your responsibility seriously. But again, a letter in writing is not going to clearly define whether a defendant will be guilty for dollar damages in an action of this type. It'll just be one more
But it
factor
does show
that the jury
something
will
about
weigh.
intent, does it not? And isn't intent part of the law,
It
Margaret?
may in fact show good faith effort to make disclosure. Intent would involve a conscious desire to perform a certain act. Intentional torts, such as intentional infliction of emotional distress, assault and battery, are far more difficult to prove. Most of these cases involve negligence, which is a failure to exercise good care that the reasonable person would exercise under those circumstances.
Let's go to...
vary from case to case.
We'll go to the state of Washington. Say hello to Richard. Hello, Richard.
Yes, good day, ladies. My kid is 19, Billy. He was arrested for auto theft, and he's in jail in Florida. He was raped twice last week. And nobody seems to care about, that he could get a death sentence for being a passenger in a stolen car. And they're saying, well, Billy can't prove he was negative. They won't test the predator. It's a mess. And I don't have the money to bail him out.
Margaret, that's a very interesting point. And as you very well know, in prisons around the country, when young people are brought in, they are certainly subject to this kind of behavior.
Well, certainly the state owes a duty to protect prisoners while they are incarcerated. And I do know of several cases that are on the books now similar to this, where an individual has experienced harm during incarceration and sexually transmitted diseases have been involved.
But indeed, he could prove if he was HIV negative at this particular point or negative for any kinds of STDs, couldn't he?
Yes, he could. Certainly with AIDS, it's far more difficult to pinpoint the presence or absence of the disease, and at a certain time, the issues of causation are far more difficult than, say, with other sexually transmitted diseases. For instance, genital herpes, which generally manifests itself within a shorter period of time, and sources of infection are more easily to trace.
Well, it is certainly something I think that we're going to see. We've just seen the tip of the iceberg, I believe, in these kinds of cases, and I thank you for discussing it with us today. Coming up, who really killed JFK? If you are fascinated with that question, you are not alone. We're going to take a look at the different theories about it next.
Nomine Patris.
Quebec, 1634. What happens when the ambitions of the old world come face to face with the mysticism and savagery of the new? From Bruce Beresford, director of Driving Miss Daisy and Tender Mercies, Black Robe, rated R. Now at select theaters, starts Friday at a theater near you.
My name is James Ford.
One capsule twice a day, okay?
I'm an econ pharmacist.
You will feel better.
I'm also the chairman of the Cocoa Housing Authority.
And schedule.
I'm very involved with the Sickle Cell Foundation.
I happen to,
and a youth program called the Young Men of Distinction.
Call tomorrow for you.
You know, I got this friend that says, does that mind all the time you spend helping people? I said, no. That's what a naked pharmacist does.
If all dogs were just puppies, all we'd make is puppy chow, with more nutrition than most adult dog foods for a healthy start. But dogs are different. That's why we make puppy chow, dog chow, fit and trim, and Purina High Pro. Pet tested, veterinarian recommended.
28 years have passed since shots rang out in Dallas on that November day in 1963, and public fascination with President Kennedy's assassination continues. Two of the people who haven't stopped searching for the real story are Mark Lane, an attorney and the author of Plausible Denial. Was the CIA involved in the assassination of JFK? And Robert Sam Anson, an investigative journalist and the author of Esquire magazine's November cover story, JFK, the movie. Oliver Stone reshoots history. They're both with us today. And let me begin with you, Mark Lane, and ask you this question. Who shot JFK?
The Central Intelligence Agency killed the president. But before I go into any detail, I'd like to do something which I pledged I would do when I was watching the Gulf War and CNN, and that is the first opportunity to thank you, CNN, and especially Peter Arnett, for the integrity and the courage of that coverage and letting the American people hear and see and know what was taking place there.
Having given that answer,
Right.
Mark, I have to assume that part of why that's so important to you is that you feel that the American public did not get to know what really happened with JFK.
That's right. My first book was called Rush to Judgment. Every publisher in America turned it down after they had accepted it, and later under the Freedom of Information Act we found out that they'd all been visited by the FBI and the CIA and told not to publish the book. Finally it was published. It became the #1 best-selling book in America in hardcover, 66, and paperback the next year, and in 23 other countries. Now under the Freedom of Information Act, we have documents showing that Rush to Judgment was first reviewed by the CIA in Langley, Virginia, from a galley proof before I was able to get one myself, and they said, this is our game plan. We must stop Lane. We must prevent the publication of his book abroad, and above all, we must use our assets. I have published these documents in the books. We must use our assets in the news media in this country and abroad, and our assets in government circles throughout the world to say about Lane that he has odd political views, that he's doing it for money, to make a personal attack upon him and later upon any of the critics,
Mark Lane,
so that we can't go into the facts. That's
that
been one of the
is a
problems.
very dark scenario, and it really
Right.
suggests that we're not living in a democratic country called the United States of America, but rather that there is an underground power group that dictates what happens in this country. And if in fact that is what you see, why the CIA, what was to be gained?
Why did they do it? John Kennedy said, and we can see it in the New York Times, and in the book I cite the page from each of these documents, and I cite documents which have not been seen before, but kept in the Kennedy White House, and other documents we got under the Freedom of Information Act. And above all, it should be said that I tried a case. This book is based upon a trial which took place, a defamation case which was filed by E. Howard Hunt because the newspaper said he and the CIA were involved in killing the president. We tried the case for 2 weeks. I took depositions from E. Howard Hunt, G. Gordon Liddy, Stansfield Turner,
Quickly,
etc.
could you tell me the reason why the CIA did it?
All right. John Kennedy said he was going to destroy the CIA. It was a headline in the New York Times, Kennedy Bitterness. Said he was going to destroy the CIA, break it into 1,000 pieces, cast it into the winds. He said every American would be out of Vietnam by the end of the next year. That meant CIA that were there before the Green Berets. He was involved in rapprochement with Fidel Castro. His representative was meeting with Fidel Castro at the very moment that the president was killed. He was going to put his own brother, with all of the documents there, Schlesinger and others have commented upon this. Robert Kennedy was going to be the head of the new intelligence organization. The CIA was doomed. The Kennedy dynasty was underway. A few shots were fired in Dallas. The end of the Kennedy dynasty.
Let me stop you.
Let me just say one last sentence, if I might. And today, the President of the United States is the former director of the CIA.
Now, Robert, is this the the dogma of a madman, or do you see that this, in fact, could be part of the scenario that went into that fateful day?
No, I think that Mark is a lot of things, but he's clearly not a madman, and we owe him all in this country a great debt for what he did in the middle and later 60s for opening the doors and investigating this case. But unfortunately, if I had a nickel for every time Mark has said that he has cracked the case and that so-and-so did it, I could have retired as an investigative journalist a long time ago. The fact of the matter is that there's not a shred of credible evidence that the CIA, acting as an organization, murdered John Kennedy. I don't have a lot of theories. I don't know who did it, and I'm very suspicious of anyone who does say that they do it. I understand the frustration. After 28 years, we really want to nail this case.
Do you believe it was a conspiracy?
I certainly do believe it was a conspiracy.
And what leads you to that belief?
I think there's overwhelming physical evidence in the case that any reasonable number of people can look at, from the trajectory of the shots to the magic bullet to this, that, and the other thing, the testimony of the eyewitnesses. The fact of the matter is that the overwhelming majority of the American people have believed consistently that their government is lying to them in the Warren Commission's explanation.
Now, in the piece you
it's an awfully difficult search, but I think we've got to be really rigorous about the search, and we've got to be just as tough on ourselves, just as exacting about finding the truth as we are with the Warren Commission, and it doesn't serve anyone, least of all ourselves, to make wild accusations.
The piece you did in Esquire, of course, suggests that Oliver Stone may be rewriting history, and I wondered how you feel about that. He brings in the CIA and really the military complex in all of this. Is he terribly off the mark? I mean, is he giving us theory and fancy as opposed to fact?
No, I think Oliver Stone really is to be commended for his guts in taking on a politically very difficult project like this. I don't agree with everything that Oliver Stone has said, but Oliver Stone, I think, has been very scrupulous in trying to get at the truth. He raises a lot of very interesting issues, and I think he's going to raise the consciousness of the American people. Is he exactly right? No. I don't think so, personally.
We'll get
but
into
I think
that
he's done a real
little
job.
bit more. Mark Lane is scribbling down some notes. And Mark,
yeah.
I want to ask you some questions
Sure.
and see if we can just go over
Could I comment on something now?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Anson said that there is no credible evidence. This case was tried by a jury. This is what the jury forewoman said when she came out and talked to the news media of America. Mr. Lane was asking us to do something very difficult. He was asking us to believe that John Kennedy had been killed by our own government. Yet when we examined the evidence, we were compelled to conclude that the CIA had indeed killed President Kennedy. This book was given to a member of Congress, Mervyn Dimley. He read it and stood up on the floor of Congress and said that this book has cracked the case. The mystery of the death of the president is solved. I can't go through all of the details, of course, in this program, but I do hear Mr. Anson say that we must be rigorous about the truth. This is the article he wrote in Esquire. It is filled with false statements. For example, Mr. Anson says about Jim Garrison that in his book, On the Trail of the Assassin, he left out from the book entirely anything in reference to the bribery and income tax evasion trials in which he was exonerated. This is the Garrison book.
Mark, let me tell you
Chapter 19
this.
is all about that.
Mark, if your intent here is to disprove something that Mr. Anson said, we're going to lose sight of why we're here.
I think that's
here
true.
At looking at the facts and the myths concerning the assassination of JFK. So let me ask each of you a few questions about that, please. I've very carefully read both of your works. Robert, let me ask you about why you think in 1976 that a House committee finding on all this said that they believed that there was, in fact, a conspiracy, and then stopped short, did not go any further with that.
They said that there was a 95% probability that John Kennedy had been the victim of a conspiracy, and they based this on a lot of things, not the least of which was an audio tape that recorded 4 shots in Dealey Plaza, one of which came from ahead of Kennedy, proving that there was a conspiracy where Oswald wasn't. Why did they stop short? I think that people who get into this particular problem get bedeviled by it. They have separate agendas to push. I do believe that the person who was the chief counsel, Robert Blakey, tried to do a very good job and was convinced at the outset, as I used to be convinced, that organized crime had everything to do with it. The fact of the matter is that there are any number of suspects for this, because there were any number of people, including Central Intelligence, that wanted to have John Kennedy out of the way. There's no doubt about possible motives. But motives are one thing. Proof is something else. And I think we've got to be very, very tough on ourselves and tough on the evidence. And to make wild accusations is not doing anybody any good.
We're going to invite our audience in, and I'm going to continue with each of you, asking some questions about facts that I think that many of us in the American public could not understand how it could have been accepted by the Warren Commission. But let's get our audience in on this conversation, too, at 212-643-0077.
If the doctor a cough, you have to keep up with the latest medicine for your family. Like new Robitussin cough drops from the people whose cough medicine is recommended by more doctors and pharmacists.
Try this, it's new.
Robitussin cough drops have an active ingredient that speeds relief right to your cough to soothe and medicate.
Excuse me, try this. It's new.
New Robitussin cough drops. Cough drops from the cough experts.
Being raised the son of a missionary in India, I was taught that drug and alcohol abuse were sins and a matter of willpower. Now, as a medical doctor in my 12th year of recovery, I know that addiction is a disease, a treatable disease.
If your family has pleaded with you to do something about your alcohol or drug problem, call Woodridge for help now. Treatment is Medicare and OHIP approved and is covered by most insurance. Call Woodridge now, 1-800-826-7950.
Dentists tell you to change your toothbrush every 3 months. But even a dentist can forget. So how does this dentist remember? Okay, Rob, show us. The new Indicator toothbrush from Oral-B. When the blue band fades halfway, it's time for a new toothbrush. The new Indicator toothbrush from Oral-B. Oral-B, the brand more dentists use.
Tonight on TNT,
It's the rebels, General.
a nation fights for independence.
Are you my son?
As Philip Kent comes face to face with his destiny, John Jake's epic tale, The Rebels. Tonight on TNT.
When we return, we'll continue our discussion about who killed JFK, and we'll take your phone calls. Also, the teen queen of women's tennis will be with us, Jennifer Capriati.
You're enjoying your evening. If you suffer from chronic halitosis, try Halo. Formulated...
Still going. Nothing outlasts the Energizer. They keep going and going and... Still going. Nothing outlasts the Energizer. They keep going and going.
Prince Charming is the little dog who was best in show at Westminster. And this is the first time in history a Pomeranian has ever done this.
Olga Baker, top breeder of champion Pomeranians.
I'm so glad that a dog food company finally came up with a product just for these little guys. Pedigree Select Dinner is perfect for the small dogs. Just look at this. This is the Beef Select Dinner. It smells like fresh meat, looks like fresh meat, and the dogs love it. This is what we've been waiting for, and it really works.
Pedigree Select Dinners. Developed with vets. Recommended by top breeders.
Sonya Live continues, followed by Newsday. After this local commercial break, next on CNN.
Father,
Yes, sister?
I have a confession.
Yes?
Remember the fax machine I bought from Divine Office Systems?
Yes.
Well, I also bought a typewriter, a computer, a copier, and a laser printer.
All that from one company?
Yes, Father.
What was the name of this company again?
Divine Office Systems.
Wise choice.
Get ready for Ice Capades, presented by Legs Sheer Energy. World-class figure skating is coming to Vets Auditorium Wednesday, November 27th through Sunday, the 1st of December. Enter Hanna-Barbera's World of Fun and Excitement on Ice with a Heritage Cablevision Ice Hot $2 off ticket offer. It's a hot deal for young people and seniors.
It's hot.
See Ice Capades, presented by Legs Sheer Energy, coming to Vets Auditorium. Don't miss this family favorite or your Ice Hot ticket offer from Heritage Cablevision.
This is CNN.
In In just a moment, we'll continue our discussion about who was behind the assassination of JFK. But first, let's get the latest in financial news from Jan Hopkins. Jan?
Thanks, Sonya. Blue chip stocks recovering a bit from Friday's 120-point plunge, but smaller stocks remain under pressure. Dow Jones Industrial Average is now up almost 6 points. It had been up as many as 24 in the early going, and also down as many as 12 points today. The Dow now at a level of 2949. Big board volume is heavy, 167 million shares trading so far. Declining issues are ahead of advancing issues by a 2-to-1 margin. On the broader and secondary markets, all 4 key indexes are lower. The NASDAQ index of over-the-counter stocks is off another 1 3/4 points. Long-term interest rates are higher. The yield on the Treasury 30-year benchmark issue is up to 7.83%. The bond is down 11/32 in price. A House subcommittee has decided to postpone a vote on a controversial bill that would cap credit card interest rates. Some have blamed the Senate's passage of that bill for Friday's steep fall on Wall Street. Senator George Mitchell says the Senate may now reconsider the bill. The White House officials say that the president will veto any attempt to artificially cap rates. That's the latest from the CNN Business News Desk in New York. I'm Jan Hopkins.
And we're talking about who killed JFK with Mark Lane, author of the book Plausible Denial, and Robert Sam Anson, author of the November Esquire article, JFK, the movie. Let's go to our audience first and say hello to Phil in New York. Hello, Phil. You're on the air, Phil. Go ahead.
Yes. I'd like to know what you guys think about the evidence that JFK and Robert Kennedy had sex with each other.
We're going to move on to the next call, and that's from Bonia in California. Hello, Bonia.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead.
I would like to know why is it that Robert L. Russell's document that under the Freedom Act of Information, nobody, absolutely no one, can get information. There is 48 pages, a letter concerning Bobby Kennedy and Robert Russell working under an investigation. And no one, even Mr. Jim Laser in Washington, D.C., has been attempting to get information to disclose those 48 pages.
Now, Mark, I don't know what this is about. If you do, please respond.
I have no idea.
Okay, do you have any idea what this
I don't
is
know
about,
the
Robert?
specific fact of the matter is that there are an awful lot of documents, including Oswald's CIA file, that are locked away until 2039. And it's a frustration for Mark, and it's a frustration for me, and it's a frustration for everyone involved in this case.
Well, that's a somewhat outdated statement. That was the statement of the commission that it would be locked away till 2039. But we have brought actions under the Freedom of Information Act, and I've received literally tens of thousands of documents which were locked away. Others remain locked away, not until 2039, but based upon each consideration by the federal district court as to whether questions of national security or other exemptions apply.
Now, the fact of the matter is that the Congress...
Those are the facts.
The congressional investigation, Congress, that was conducted by the House Select Committee on Assassinations, Congress is exempt from all the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, and a ton of documents have been locked away, and they are exempt from that. There's no way we're going to get at it.
We're going to go forward with Christopher in New York. Hello, Christopher.
I'd like to ask gentlemen in Washington about the Z tapes. What exactly do they reveal?
The Zapruder films?
Yes.
I guess. The Zapruder films, which I saw years ago at the very beginning, and showed them on radio, where radio announcers would explain to the audience what it showed that when the bullet hit the president in the head, his head was from the right front, he was driven backward and left suddenly and violently. Portions of the brain material struck a patrolman back there and almost knocked him off his motorbike, indicating the shot had come from the right front. But the Zapruder film is more than a film. It's the clock for the assassination. Once you know that the film went through the Bell and Howell camera at the rate of 18.3 frames per second, you have a clock. And when you see that the first shot to last is 5.6 seconds, the weapon the Warren Commission, the FBI, said Oswald used, an old man of Carcano, required at least a 2.3 interval period, even without aiming, between shots. At least 5 shots were fired. That alone is proof that Oswald could not have done it utilizing that weapon.
Robert, I have seen the Zapruder film probably at this point hundreds of times. I mean, I sat there and clocked it and watched it. I cannot understand, if you agree with what Mark just said, how the Warren Commission could have accepted the findings that the entrance was from the back.
Except for the number of shots, I do agree with what Mark said. And the Zapruder film is as basic as common sense and Newtonian laws of motion. But when you get hit in the front, I was in Vietnam. I saw a lot of people get shot standing right next to me. You get blown backwards, and that's precisely what happened to President Kennedy.
Okay, but you don't know why they would accept something like that. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on it.
I don't think that the Warren Commission was consciously trying to mislead the American people. I think they were deceived by themselves. I think they had, and we know because both the FBI and CIA, who are their chief investigative agencies, have admitted that they withheld vital information from the Warren Commission. I think they were trying to come up with a convenient political truth, and that we understand now, 28 years later, that that truth is not the correct one.
We're going to go to Maryland. We'll get back to you, Mark, in a moment. Let's go to Chuck in Maryland first. Chuck.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to know if CIA was involved, Mr. Lane, what kind of safeguards, or if there was any, to keep this from happening again?
Well, there are none. The problem is there are none until the facts are revealed and a special prosecutor is appointed and those responsible are prosecuted. The CIA was involved. Mr. Anson can say whatever he wants in his pose as an independent journalist of integrity. The fact is a jury has passed upon this question. More than that, there is an eyewitness who was part of this team who
Mark, are you
testified.
suggesting that Mr. Anson works for the CIA?
I don't know.
Has any government connection? I mean, that's a statement that you're making. I'd like to know
saying that
what that's supposed to mean.
Well, in his article, which he published, which you're talking about, are false statements one after the other, and he knows they are there. And I don't know why he would do that in an effort to shoot down the Oliver Stone film. How can anyone review a film until we see it? It's not finished until the editor finishes it, and I think it's an outrage for anyone to be commenting upon that film as to whether it's good or bad until we see it on the screen. But this is what is true. What is a fact is, in plausible denial, we've put forward the Mexico City scenario where we prove conclusively from the documents that the CIA was telling Earl Warren Oswald had been in Mexico City between September 26th and October 3rd in 1963. He was planning to kill the president then. He met with a man named Kostakov, KGB officer in charge of assassinations in the Western Hemisphere at the Soviet embassy, went to the Cuban embassy. I won't go into any further details except to say this terrified the members of the commission. As we put the evidence together now, and with the statement of David Phillips, who ran the Western Hemisphere for the CIA out of Mexico City, in a statement which we now have tape recorded, a debate between me and him years ago, he says we never had any proof that Oswald was there, and in fact, Oswald was not in the Soviet embassy. We demonstrate that. That's how the Warren Commission was held hostage. That's how the truth was held hostage. To the fear, as Earl Warren said to that first staff meeting, and Melvin Eisenberg, the staff lawyer for the commission, young man, took the minutes. He said Earl Warren came in and said, after meeting with Lyndon Johnson and the CIA, we have to set aside our general principles. If we do not, if all the facts come out, 40 million people may die in a nuclear war.
Let
That's
me stop you at that moment. We will continue with some more questions from our audience and, of course, a rebuttal or a statement from Robert Sam Anson. 212-643-0077.
There are places throughout the land where one can find a rare, wonderful breed, providing shelter in big city hotels, warmth at inns along the way, sustenance in sun-drenched resorts, comfort in spacious all-suites. Discover the people of ITT Sheraton and why they've made us the natural choice.
How do we balance America's need for wood with the need for wilderness? The need for paper with the need for wildlife? Tough questions, but we're working on the answers. That's why in the last decade, America's leading forest products companies have spent more than $100 million to protect the environment and to protect wildlife. After all, we're not the only ones who need trees. The American Forest Council, helping to protect the future of America's forests.
Campbell's heard your healthy request.
Low cholesterol.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
Dave Thomas traveled the world looking for new food ideas.
But if it's
for Wendy's.
I could really go for a Big Dave's Deluxe.
A quarter pound of fresh beef, cheese, 3 strips of bacon, sauteed onions, the works, only at Wendy's.
Is this what I ordered?
On CNN Today, after 20 years with the company, you'd lose your job. What's your next step? On Early Prime. Then on Showbiz Today, an exclusive interview with AIDS activist Liz Taylor. All today on CNN.
Hello, I'm Lou Waters. Newsday is at the top of the hour. We'll have the story of two Western hostages, one an American, one a Briton, who were freed today in Lebanon. All eyes are on Wall Street today. Can the market bounce back after Friday's big drop? We'll find out. And a fight to save a popular Canadian river from a massive hydroelectric project. Newsday begins in about 20 minutes. Join us.
We are talking about the theory surrounding the Kennedy assassination. You want to get a point in, Robert, so let's go back to you.
It's not every day that it's suggested on national television that I may be working for the Central Intelligence Agency. I must say that there are some days when I wish I were, because it would make my reporting a lot easier. The fact of the matter is that I'm not. The other fact of the matter is that the Eisenberg memorandum about the Warren Commission's deliberation has been deliberately misstated by Margaret. It didn't say anything about the people in the Warren Commission putting aside their principles. It did warn that if they came up with the wrong kind of truth, there was a possibility of nuclear war. There was no way that these people, included some of the finest men in the United States, were going to put aside their principles. Again, I think we've got to be really rigorous about this kind of stuff. I'm also a great backer of what Oliver Stone is up to. There is overwhelming evidence that Lee Harvey Oswald was accused of the assassination, did have ties to some agency of American intelligence. The evidence of that is overwhelming. Does that mean that American intelligence, acting as an organization, had anything to do with the assassination of President Kennedy? It does not. What it does suggest is that there was overwhelming motive for American intelligence to try to impede the investigation. There was no way that CIA or DIA or ONI could have conveniently come to the American people on the evening of November 25th, 1963, after Oswald had been murdered, and say, look, folks, while he was working for us in the Soviet Union and afterwards, there was no way he was working for us on November 22nd, 1963. I think he was a patsy. I happen to think that CIA is an organization that includes a lot of great American patriots. They're trying to do their best for this country. I'm very critical of a lot of what they do. I do not believe that CIA or any American intelligence organization, as an organization, had anything to do with the assassination, and there's not a shred of credible evidence that they did.
We're going to go on to Virginia and to Mike. Hello, Mike. Join us.
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
I'd like to agree real quickly with what Mr. Anson just said. Oswald was the perfect patsy. My question is to Mr. Lane, however. Certainly, I'm convinced it was a conspiracy, but what makes Mr. Lane think it was the CIA when the Secret Service is the only agency that had the ability to be that close to the president? There's irrefutable evidence, physical evidence, that there was a pre-autopsy autopsy, that when the body arrived at Bethesda, there was a major mix-up with the ambulances, and when the autopsy chief looked at the body, his first words were, there's already been brain surgery on this.
Well, there are any number of organizations that were close enough and had the capability and the motivation and the means to kill the president. We can't do it that way. We have to look at the hard evidence. A jury has. Mr. Anson can say until his face turns blue that there's not a shred of evidence to show that the CIA did it. In fact, a jury heard the evidence. Mr. Anson was not in court. They heard it for 2 weeks. I took depositions from these folks. The jury heard all that. There was an eyewitness who testified. There's documentary evidence. And the jurors finding for the defendant in the defamation case, a case in which was brought by E. Howard Hunt because the newspaper had said that Hunt and the CIA killed President Kennedy.
Mr. Lane, are you in this to be right, or are you in this to help unfold the truth?
Why do you think I've been working on this for 28 years? It is to get the facts out. And I've tried this case, and Mr. Anson can say that every time I've said I've cracked the case, he was around or he'd like to be paid for it. That's a false statement. I have worked, my first book, Rush to Judgment, compared the known evidence, which the Warren Commission's findings, and had no theory as to who did it at all. Now, 28 years later, after I have tried this case, after I've taken depositions, after we've seen evidence which was not previously available, I have reached a conclusion. The jury has endorsed that conclusion. Members of Congress have endorsed that conclusion.
How about if we hear a little bit more from our audience? We've certainly heard this point of view, and I accept it. Let me assure you, I accept what you have to say as your unqualified point of view on this particular case. We're going to go to Jim in Ohio. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, I did a lot of research on the Kennedy assassination back in the early 70s, and I think one of the key points that people miss is simply the fact that what was the motive behind it? The obvious motive, the most obvious motive, is that Jack Kennedy bought the 1960 election through Cook County, Chicago, vis-a-vis Sam Giancana and the Chicago mob.
Well, I want to ask you, just before you start, Robert, you have really suggested that, and in terms of what Oliver Stone is saying, it was not unlike a Sadat coup. It was very similar in some ways because of the military.
I mean, there are any number of possible motives for this case. I mean, to look at the motives, this could have been a conspiracy of jealous husbands as far as Jack Kennedy was involved. We've got to be really relentless, and one of the problems is I don't expect the American government to come forward and say, hey, here's what really happened. I do expect the national establishment press, of which I'm a member, to investigate this as thoroughly and as rigorously as they would common correct. We have not done our job. We've been asleep for 28 years. There are a number of good reasons for why we've been asleep. It's not because there's any conspiracy of CNN and the Washington Post and the New York Times are getting together in a room saying, hey, we've got to frustrate this investigation. Fact is that reporters are fairly straight-thinking people, and when they hear wild accusations, they back away from it. When they see that a lot of people who are a little flaky are attached to the Kennedy investigation, they say, I don't want to have anything to do with it. That's why we've got to be really tough.
I cannot end this segment without asking you one question and asking for a short answer. What if? What if it really was the work of one lone madman? Is that so chaotic for our thinking that we need to have it organized in some way because we'll feel better? Could it have happened exactly the way the Warren Commission said?
Not unless you repeal Newtonian laws of motion, it couldn't have happened.
Well, the fact is, unless Oswald was able to shoot the president from the front, from the back, it's not possible. Unless Oswald was able to get the Warren Commission to look at evidence which showed that Oswald had been in Mexico City when he had not been there, to set up a charade to fool the CIA so the CIA would talk to Earl Warren about that, it's not possible. Unless Oswald was able to fire more shots than could be fired in the hands of the world's rifle Olympic champion, Hubert Hammer, who said at that time he couldn't get that performance out of the
Gentlemen,
rifle. So it just could not have happened.
And the story continues. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Up next, tennis teenage superstar Jennifer Capriati.
Watch closely, and we'll tell you how to get a genuine gunned teddy bear and the American classic, It's a Wonderful Life. A lovable gift combination, guaranteed to warm even Scrooge's heart.
Excuse me. Yeah. Do you have a section on politics? I'm looking for a gift for my son, and he's fascinated by it.
I know just what you want. Here it is. You'll love this. It's a bestseller.
Say, isn't that your travel section?
Yeah.
You know he loves to travel.
Searching for the right gift can be so confusing, but the answer is as simple as time. Time is the gift that travels the world, saving you from traveling the stores and fighting those holiday crowds.
I have this at home myself.
You know he loves to keep on top of science and technology.
And business, health, education.
And Time's a smart gift because it's on sale before the holidays. So don't exhaust yourself looking for the perfect gift out there. It's right here. 52 issues of Time at more than 57% off the cover price. 4 monthly installments of $13.95 each. Just call this number. Their first issue, Man of the Year, will arrive Christmas week in this personalized gift wrap which says it's from you. Plus, you get this thoughtful card to announce that your Time gift is on the way. So make time for Time. And get this huggable teddy bear. It's a genuine gunned bear. You'd pay a lot more at retail stores for this soft, cuddly teddy, but it's our gift to you when you give a gift subscription of Time magazine. Act right now and we'll also send you the American classic, It's a Wonderful Life. Call now. Get your gunned bear and bonus videotape. Yours free when you make time for Time.
Would you like these gift wraps?
Oh, my. I can't get him all that. You've been very helpful, but I think I'll get him Time instead. It's the perfect gift.
Call this number now. This holiday season, make time for Time.
She can serve, volley, and lob with the best of them, and she's taken the tennis world by storm by becoming the youngest player ever to reach the semifinals of a Grand Slam tournament. But the thing that's most impressive about Jennifer Capriati is that she hasn't even celebrated her 16th birthday yet. And today she's ready to take a bite out of the Big Apple, competing in this week's Virginia Slims tournament. Welcome. I know that you had a little pull. I think it was over the weekend. How's that doing? And is that going to spook you at all when you go out to play?
Well, it's still okay right now. I'm still going to play, and I'm just relaxing today and giving it a rest. But I'll try not to think about it, because if I start, then lose track of what I'm doing, of actually playing.
You know, I wondered if there was a technique that all of you have to learn a bit for that. You've got the audience out there. You've got the pressure. You've got people like your family who really want you to do well. You may have a little headache, a small cold, a pull, a muscle pull. How do you just focus in on what you're doing every minute?
You just do, and you just concentrate on hitting the ball. There's really nothing you can do to learn or practice it. You just, have
you
to get
either have it or
used
you
to it.
don't at that particular point.
Yeah.
But you always seem like you're having a great time. Do you really have a great time getting out there?
Yeah, I do. I love every minute of it.
And the win, I mean, do you ever feel that it's maybe a friend and you're right down there and you even have that sense of, that this is going to be the winning stroke?
Well, it's tough. I don't like playing people I know people I'm really good friends with, but you just can't think about it.
That, can you?
No.
That's something you just have to do. Are you ever intimidated? Did you walk out, for example, and meeting Martina Navratilova? Oh, you did. Tell us a little bit about that. What do you say to yourself so that you can feel like a peer and go forward?
Well, the first time I played Martina in Hilton Head, she's a great champion, and I said the ledge. I was just in awe when I went out there. I couldn't believe I was across the net from Martina Navratilova, and I'd always watch her and Chrissy all the time, and I never thought I'd ever be playing against her. There I was on the court, and the first time, I said I was in awe, and I just couldn't help thinking about it. And then the second time at Wimbledon, I said, nah, this time I cannot think about it. And I didn't feel as intimidated, I guess, because, I've been playing a little more, and I had a little more experience.
I want to know a little bit about what it's like to have your dad as a cheerleader and coach and dad when he says, come on, just hit 3 more, and you say, come on, Dad, let's go to McDonald's.
You definitely need him there. You need all the support from all my family, my mom and my brother.
A lot of families say no one is going to take care of this kid like I am. Do you think that that's really true, that you can't take someone like yourself, a young woman or a young man, and turn them over to the professionals? The family always has to be in there.
Yeah, I think you can never let go because you know that it's tough and you always need support.
And Brother Stephen, does he ever get resentful because his whole life really revolves around your tennis?
No, he actually doesn't, and I try to, prevent that. And, when he plays in a tournament, I'll go and watch him, and I'll be always interested in what he's doing, and he's great.
And Monica Seles has now become a factor in your life. Tell us a little bit about how you're handling that and what that means when you go up against her again.
Well, just, every time you play her, it's going to be a fight to the end. And every point it's like never going to be a free point. You're never going to get a free point with her. And it's going to be a battle when you go out and play her.
Is there ever a point in a match where you have to fight against saying, I've already lost this, and you have to kind of keep addressing yourself, being your own cheerleader, in effect, to get through the entire game?
Well, I just try to think that you just fight to the last point, and it's not over to the last point, and just keep fighting, and don't think you're ever out of it.
When you're out there, you're fighting, you're competing, you're really on view, everybody focuses on you, and then you say, gee, there are a lot of 15-year-olds who are out going to parties, thinking about a junior prom, perhaps. They can go out and get ice cream and just hang out. Ever jealous of that?
No, because I actually do those things when I'm home as much as I can. After the US Open, I didn't play a tournament until last week, and I was doing all those normal things.
And when you get back, is it really like getting back on a bike? It all comes back to you, and you feel very smooth about it, or do you feel a little out of sync and have to work yourself back in when you go to practice for a tournament?
Well, I feel a little rusty if it's been a while, but usually just get into it real quick.
Well, you're just a great gal, and we're delighted to have you with us. Wish you luck, and of course we'll be watching to see how the Virginia Slims go. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll be right back.
so much to celebrate. Corbel Champagne.
Here's 20 new reasons to visit Disney World this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Here's where to stay.
You can be right in the middle of all the Walt Disney World 20th birthday magic and stay at a spectacular Disney resort from $85 a night. Call 1-407-WDisney right now.
Let's light up the night. Let's do it upright.
Let Long John Silver's brighten your holidays with beautiful crystal. Just 69 or 99 cents with any meal.
Don't think Long John Silver.
Campbell's heard your healthy request.
Low cholesterol.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
Tonight, a married Catholic priest has the church up in arms. And Reba McEntire. All from the Big Apple. All tonight on Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at whether pregnant police officers face discrimination on the job. And Beach Boy Brian Wilson will be joining us. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. Now let's take a look at what's ahead on Newsday as we go to Cheryl Atkinson in Atlanta.
Thanks, Sonya. Up next on Newsday, we'll have the latest on the release of 2 Western hostages in Lebanon. We'll also have the newest numbers from Wall Street. Traders are wary after Friday's stock market plunge. Plus, we'll examine the issue of pregnancy bias in the workplace and explain why plump police officers may be feeling the pinch in Chicago. Join Lou Waters and me for Newsday next.
Coming up, Newsday, followed by International Hour, after a word from your local cable system, here on CNN.
If you'd like to give a special gift to a boy or girl 8 years old and up, get your pencil ready and write down this number, because I've got just the answer for you. It's National Geographic World Magazine, published especially for kids by the National Geographic Society, the same people who produce world-famous National Geographic magazine. It brings real-life adventure, page after page of fascinating articles and pictures in National Geographic color on animals, outdoor adventure and science, faraway places, sports, and hobbies. And yet, while it entertains, it fulfills curiosity, stimulates imagination, and encourages your youngster to read more. It's amazingly inexpensive. For 12 issues in brilliant geographic color, compare this once-a-month, 12 times a year gift to a single gift from a toy store, and you can see what a bargain this is. There's no shopping, no wrapping, no shipping. You cannot buy it at a newsstand or bookstore. You can get it only through the mail, and it's so easy to order. Just call with that special child's name and address today. Call 1-800-257-1257. Each issue has exciting surprises, puzzles to solve, games to play with friends, stories about kids doing special things, and often supersized pullouts to put on the wall. Youngsters even have the opportunity to compete for a $5,000 scholarship. National Geographic World, what a wonderful gift for any boy or girl. And when you call with your subscription order today, we'll also mail a special personalized gift card from you. So call or write today with your young reader's address and your name for the gift card. Call 1-800-257-1257. That's 1-800-257-1257. 12 colorful issues and a card from you for only $12.95. This gift lasts a year. The benefits last a lifetime.